Hello and welcome back to another episode of NPC That's Next Portable Console. I'm John Voorhees, and I've got with me over there in Rome, Italy, Federico Viticci. How you doing, Federico?
Hello, John. How are you?
Oh, good. It's good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's just the two of us.
It is. We don't have our friend Brendon Bigley with us, but he will be back soon enough. We did earlier today in the TWG Discord get a photo from him of a street corner in Japan where there was a sign that said in big bold letters at the top, NPC.
24 hours. It also says NPC 24 hours.
Yeah, and well, I mean, that's kind of true right there too. But I was wondering what it was. I looked at it and I thought, oh, that looks like a bus stop to me, right? And I wasn't really sure what was beneath the 24 hours. It's a kanji character, but I thought it was maybe it's far away. I thought maybe it was a schedule or something. But it turns out that this is a sign for a 24-hour coin-operated parking lot, and the character lets us know that there are vacancies in the lot, so you can park your car there. So, NPC, if you're in Japan, NPC, I guess, means that you may be looking for parking, but here it means we're talking about handheld gaming.
Now, my question is, what is Brendon doing in a parking lot?
Well, he didn't look like he was in the parking lot. I suspect he was walking by. I used, the reason I know this, I used Gemini. No, I didn't. I used ChatGPT actually to upload the photo and see what I was looking at, and that helped me figure it out. So that's a little introduction, a little bit of Brendon from afar for recording today.
He will be back soon enough. But just
he will. He's just, I mean, look, the guy has only been on his honeymoon for like 3 days, so
yeah,
we thought he ought to have a week off, but he'll be back and joining us soon enough. I did, Federico, want to talk about a little bit of feedback we got because last week we talked, and we're going to talk about it more, but we talked about the Anbernic RG34XXSP, which is the 3.4 inch 3x2 aspect ratio.
Yeah.
Clamshell handheld from Anbernic that was rumored last week and is a reality this week, and we'll get to that in a bit. But someone mentioned to us in our feedback they were hoping that maybe we would release our shows earlier, and I get it. I totally get it. I think, though, that more than anything, NPC is not intended to be kind of like a breaking news type of podcast. We are going to cover the news. It's one of the big components of the show. And from time to time, we are going to find ourselves having talked about something that maybe changes from the time we record to the time we publish. But that's actually been pretty infrequent so far. And we did actually publish early when the Nintendo Switch news dropped, because that would have been quite stale having happened just like the day before we recorded. So yeah, I totally get it. I think, where it really makes sense, we would probably publish it a little early here and there, as kind of an emergency podcast episode. But given kind of the schedules that the three of us have, for the most part, I think we're unfortunately going to keep, and then I don't think it's that unfortunate, but I think we are going to keep a schedule of recording a few days in advance of actually.
Yeah, we're gonna try our best in trying to make a podcast that is timely, but that also it's obviously challenging to coordinate with three people in two different time zones, and now three because Brendon is in Japan. So sometimes these things will happen. And so I know that in the latest episode, we were talking about the rumored 34XXSP, and now it's official. But that, it just, sometimes these things will happen, and it's very challenging unless you're doing a daily podcast. And I know, some people do daily shows. I don't know how they do it, honestly.
I don't either.
Some people do daily Twitch streams. It's enough for us to coordinate on a weekly show. So sometimes this thing will happen, and as you say, sometimes we'll do an emergency episode. But where can people send feedback, John?
So they can go to macstories.net/podcasts, where they'll find NPC. And if you go to the NPC page, it's /NPC, you'll find a link which goes to a Google form. And I have from other shows noticed people wondering why we ask you to put in your email. We're not collecting people's email to use them for any reason. We're basically doing that to avoid people just spamming us or trolling us and things like that. So no worries there. We're not this is not like something that we're using to generate a list of any kind. And yeah, I mean, these stories tend to have an arc too. That's the other thing, is that week to week things change, and they're going to be, 1 week something's a rumor, the next week it's a reality, the week after that it's not shipping because of tariffs. I mean, things change, they move, and we'll do our best to keep on top of them. But yeah, we're going to probably stick for the most part with the schedule we have now.
Yeah.
So we should dig into the news, Federico.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lawsuit, and obviously you're the guy to explain what's going on. Lawyer John is making a comeback also on NPC.
I'm having problems with my headphones today, Federico. They're all over the place. They don't want to stay in my ears, so I'm going to shove them in my ears here while I'm talking. But yes, for people, NPC people, some people might not know. In a former life, I was a lawyer for many years, and then I joined Federico at Mac Stories, and the rest is history, as they say. But this is an interesting lawsuit to me because Nintendo has sued Genki, which makes accessories for the Nintendo Switch and a bunch of other things. And what's interesting about it is that Brendon and I heard about this when we were at CES in January, that Genki was going around showing off what was like a version of the Nintendo Switch 2, like 3D printed model or whatever, a prototype, whatever it happened to be. And we weren't sure what was going on. And it was very strange because when we went to the booth that was supposedly Genki's booth, there was an entirely different company there. And we went kind of late in our time at CES. And I don't know if they just kind of disappeared, because there were rumblings that at the thing that Nintendo was unhappy about what they were doing, because they were very open about, hey, we've got this thing at our booth. Come see what the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to look like and how we're going to, do cases and things for it. And then we just didn't hear anything about it after that. And they weren't really alone. I think other companies were a little more circumspect. I mean, Brendon and I did see like a clear plastic shell that a company had made that really didn't tell us anything other than it had a cutout for the screen, so we could get a sense for the fact that the Switch 2 was going to be larger. But beyond that, it wasn't much we could do. Other companies had like prototype screen protectors and that sort of thing. But Genki was being really aggressive about it. And I think if you remember too, Dbrand was doing some pretty aggressive advertising and things on Twitter and other places. And Dbrand hasn't been sued that I know of yet, but Genki has. And Genki has responded only other than they appreciate the support of the community and other stuff like that. And they're going to, they'll update people as things move along. But Nintendo has asked for them to be barred from selling Switch accessories entirely, which, potentially pretty big piece of their business for a relatively small company. They do make accessories for other handhelds. I've tried some of their stuff in the past. They made that like SSD add-on for the Steam Deck and the Legion Go and that sort of thing. But the Switch, of course, they've made things for it too, cases and covers, and I think like all that kind of thing. So we'll have to see where this goes. Right now, that's all we know.
Interesting. They were a little brazen at CES.
Oh, they were to like really kind of advertise on social media. Come to our booth and you can see, you can hold what will essentially be the form factor of a Switch 2 is kind of a lot.
Yeah.
In a very public place like that.
Very public. Yeah. And also there were like a few stories on tech websites like saying, oh, Genki is showing off a prototype, which wasn't a prototype. But they're saying they're showing off what looks like a Nintendo Switch 2, and that's probably pushing it a little too far, Yeah,
we never actually saw it ourselves. It was the end of the story, I guess. But my sense was it wasn't really a prototype. It was more like a 3D printed model or something.
Yeah, like a mock-up, yeah. Right. Speaking of the Switch 2, Nintendo is forecasting 15 million units sold in the first year. That probably seems a little low. I don't know. Given the anticipation that there is surrounding the Switch 2, it seems like maybe Nintendo is being a little conservative in terms of their estimates. I mean, they're running out of stock for 2 million units in Japan. So I guess maybe this forecast maybe comes down to whether Nintendo can produce more than 15 million Switch 2 units in a year. Maybe that's the question.
I think that probably is the question, because I think the demand, I think you're right. It feels to me like the demand is greater. This was, I guess, relayed in the context of earnings reports. And obviously, I think most companies are going to be more conservative in making those estimates in that particular context. But they said, by next April, which I think is the end of their fiscal quarter, they will have sold 15 million, they think, which is roughly the same number that the Switch 1 had sold in the first year. So it's potentially a little ahead of that, but not by a huge amount. But as you said, we saw reports of 2.2 million pre-orders in Japan, as well as the fact that in the United States, at least, Target, Best Buy, and Walmart have all sold out of their pre-orders. And we don't know how many each of those companies was allotted, but that seems like between Japan and the United States, it's a pretty big chunk. I would think that would be, I think I expected the demand. If I had heard 25 million, I think I would have been more in line with what I was thinking.
Yeah. We'll see. It's only less than a month left at this point. I was just looking
it's
at
hard.
the calendar.
It's hard to imagine that it's that soon. I'm amazed.
Yeah. John, what is going on at the Louvre?
Yeah, I love this story because I didn't know that this was still a thing in France, but at the Louvre Museum in Paris, years and years ago, they had a deal with Nintendo to hand out 3DSs.
I remember this from like 10 years ago or something.
I do too. It was a long time ago, but and I saw in one of the articles they had a picture of Miyamoto at the museum using it, with headphones in, looking at the great works of art and learning more details about them on a 3DS, which an interesting concept. And you think about it at the time, you think, well, why wouldn't you just use your iPhone? Well, we're talking about before the iPhone, right? I mean, I don't remember exactly when this was, but the 3DS was a much more prevalent handheld device with touch enabled in the early days. And more affordable as well. So this was a device that Louvre was using, and this September they're finally going to retire those. I mean, Nintendo's not making parts anymore, as we've reported on before. You can't buy them at a store anywhere. All you've got is the used market. So I'm sure that their inventory of heavily used 3DSs by the masses of tourists in Paris have taken a toll on them, and they're running out of stock, and they've got to end it.
Do you think any of the Louvre 3DSs will end up on eBay or something?
I don't know. I mean, maybe, but
I kind of want one. I kind of want one with the guide and everything.
Yeah, I guess that's true. If they have custom software on them, that would be pretty cool. I don't know if they've got a custom body or anything. I really don't recall. I didn't go back and look. But that could be kind of interesting. My guess is that they're pretty darn beat up, though, at this point. I mean, they're heavily used over a course of many years. So,
yeah. Well, that's interesting. We'll see if maybe, in September, something will pop up on eBay or something like that. These things usually, like, with these things, whenever like a company, I mean, if we live in a timeline where you can find Apple prototypes on eBay,
yes,
I'm sure the Louvre 3DS somehow will also end up on eBay.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Good bet.
Yeah. Anyway, John, this is totally your sort of thing. I want to talk about the Backbone Pro. So if you recall, the Backbone controller was probably, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the Backbone was like the first iPhone controller to like get really popular. Like the first controller that was built, that had great build quality, the idea of a companion iOS app that sort of acted as a launcher for your other iPhone games. And it was like the first controller way before all the GameSurs, all the other, now were I mean, it's full of iPhone compatible controllers. But the Backbone was the original. Now they never did a proper Backbone 2. They did that deal with PlayStation to have the PlayStation themed Backbone controller. Now, they're still not announcing a Backbone 2, but they're announcing a Backbone Pro. So this thing is $170. So that's even more expensive than, for example, like a Razer Kishi controller, which is like already like sort of the high end of iPhone controllers. So this thing, they wanted to break the high end of controllers. And I guess the big news is that it's got Bluetooth. It's got a battery. So in addition to using it with the phone, because it's still got a USB-C connector on the side, it still is a telescopic controller. You place your iPhone in the middle. You can connect via USB-C. But this time, they also want you to use it as a regular controller in Bluetooth mode.
Right.
And I'm not sure what I think about it. Like, I'm not sure, and I want to know what you think about this. But like, is there a scenario in which I'm not using a DualSense or I'm not using an Xbox controller, and instead I'm thinking, no, you know what? With my PC or my Xbox or my PlayStation, I want to use my Backbone.
Yeah, I don't know. I think no. I think absolutely no. I mean, I'm a fan of the Backbone controller. I had the very original version of it, and they've iterated it a little bit on it over time. And it's a good controller. It's well built. The original one was made for Lightning connectors just for the iPhone, and then they went to USB-C and incorporated Android as well as iPhones. And I like it. I've always found other controllers, telescopic controllers, that I've liked better. I mean, I think one of the things that the Backbone did very early on, and I tried so hard to get more insider information on what was going on here, but they have an app that integrates your game. So like if you start a game, it'll show up in the Backbone app. So it becomes very much like going into Xbox Game Pass or something. You know, you've got a catalog of the games that you've opened, and that is some sort of special entitlement that they're getting from Apple, I think. Razer has done the same thing with the Kishi and their companion app called Nexus. And, you know, this Backbone, it's very expensive for what it is, I think. I mean, the Kishi Ultra is very similar in that it also has a battery. It also has Bluetooth. The Kishi can also be used as a wired controller. I'm not sure if that's the case with the Backbone Pro or not.
They don't mention it.
I don't think they do. Yeah, they don't mention it anywhere that I've seen. And it's fine. I mean, yeah, I just don't see myself. I've never used my Razer Kishi Ultra as a separate controller, even though I can for my Xbox or my PS5 or even my Mac for that matter. It's just a little weird holding a telescopic controller with nothing in the center.
Exactly.
It just feels kind of weird. I mean, they weight it. The Kishi is like this too. One thing I saw about the Backbone Pro is it's heavier, it's heftier, and I think it's a little bit more ergonomic in terms of the grips, which is nice too. But it's just a strange thing to hold if you've got no phone in there. So I don't know. I mean, I suppose if you don't have a lot of controllers lying around like I do, maybe you'd be more interested in having this as your spare controller, or maybe if you know, for a friend coming over to play too, and you only have one controller. Otherwise, it's good for those kind of scenarios. But I don't think I would ever use it as like a primary controller if I had a choice.
Yeah,
you know?
Just maybe as you say, like you have people coming over or something. You're like, hey, sure, why not? We can use that one. You know, yeah. Okay. Now, the other bit of news that I wanted to discuss on this week's episode is the Anbernic that we mentioned in the feedback section. The RG34XXSP is now official. Now, this thing looks kind of weird, and I want to talk about it.
I don't like the design at all.
So the TLDR would be Anbernic is doing a Miyu flip, right? Kind of. So what they're doing is they're taking the same hinge as the 35XXSP, it seems. Not official, but it seems like the same mechanism. They're putting the recessed analog sticks at the bottom of the front of the console.
Yep.
And they're using a 3:2 aspect ratio, 3.5 inch, 480p screen with
3.4 inch.
3.4 inch.
Yeah.
With a perfect 3x scale for GBA games, as we expected. But the problem is that due to the aspect ratio, this thing has got a fat bezel on the top. So especially if you look at the yellow color, I mean, you're really looking at this pretty thick bezel above the screen, and the screen is sort of like centered in the middle of it. It looks very strange. And
why is yellow a thing all of a sudden with these handhelds?
I have no idea.
Is it supposed to be like the Pikachu model or something? I mean, what's the deal?
That was my interpretation. That is like, oh, it looks like Pokemon, it looks like Pikachu, and but I don't know. I'm looking at it again now. I am really perplexed because the display, I mentioned that it was centered. It's not even centered in the middle of the panel. So you have it's almost like floating down almost. And you have this thick bezel at the top that is different from it's not the same proportion as the bezel at the bottom. It's very strange.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe looking at it now, maybe they didn't want the twin sticks to be where the display is, so that thicker, taller.
Maybe, although it looks, I think they would still hit the screen potentially. At least part of them. They would still
hit the screen.
It looks to me like at least half of them would still hit the screen.
But in any case, so this console, I mean, you're really looking at. It looks like a 35XXSP only.
Yeah.
It has two sticks like the Mio Flip, and a 3:2 aspect ratio. So to me, this looks like Anbernic saying, why not? We see people buying the Mio Flip. We think we can do a similar thing, optimized for GBA aspect ratio, right? So they're basically saying, oh, this is our answer to the Mio Flip, but we can also have a native GBA 3x scale, perfect scaling aspect ratio, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that the yellow is not the only color. There are 4 colors that they're going to be offering. So there are other ones. I mean, yellow seems to be the one that all these companies show off. And I'll tell you, I mean, my Mii Flip that I have, I got it, the yellow one, because it was the only one that was available from AliExpress at the time. And I don't think it's a great color. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I've got better looking handhelds. So, I mean, it's fine. It's got Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 4.2, neither of which are, recent versions of those technologies by a long shot. But if you're playing older retro games, you're not going to stream GeForce Now on the RG34XXSP.
Well, they're showing off people streaming Black Myth Wukong via Moonlight on a teeny tiny screen using Wi-Fi 5.
Sure.
Good luck with that.
Sure.
Good luck with that. Sure.
Good luck reading any of those menus. I mean, that's one of those games that's like got a heavy. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yes.
It's one of those things where just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
I mean, technically, you can stream Moonlight on a 3:2, 3.4 inch display.
Yeah.
But would you really?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of streaming, is that you don't need a powerful processor, and this has, well, at least
you need a powerful Wi-Fi, though.
You do. I was getting that. That's where I was going with it. I mean, the rumor here is that it's going to be the same, what is it, H700 chip that they had in their other devices, which would be perfectly capable of handling a streaming app. But Wi-Fi 5 is potentially pretty rough, especially for... you'd have to be streaming, I think, at 1080p and probably no better than that, I would think, for most games. So I mean, I guess you even if you're streaming at 1080p, the reality is you've got a 480p screen. So really, what are you doing? 480p? With streaming these games, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Sure. Just because you can.
Just because, again, we still don't know the price. We don't know the release date. We don't know the impact of the tariffs. So we'll see. This is just, we got a video. We're going to link the video in the show notes, and now it's official. So we'll see how much it costs and when it comes out.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, we're going to talk about, I think, virtual game cards on NPC XL, because John has been able to use one. John has tested the feature.
I did.
And
this is what happens when you have multiple Nintendo Switches. You can do these things.
So we're going to talk about that. But before we go, we got to address the leaks of the ROG Ally 2.
We do.
I was waiting for this moment because I knew that this device would have to get certified at some point. And so thanks
Right.
to our, friends of the show, the FCC, we now have official pictures and some specs, it seems, of the 2 versions of the ROG Ally 2. Now,
Federico, before you get into the specs, can we just like shout out to ASUS and say, you know what? Clean up those handhelds before you take those pictures for the FCC.
oh my
Did you
God.
see how many fingerprints were on those things? They looked like they had been through hell. They did not look good.
I saw the many fingerprints on the screen. So it looks like we're gonna get 2 versions of the ROG Ally 2, and one of them may be you recall that rumor from a couple of months ago that that we're not gonna have an Xbox portable console this year, but they were gonna have an Xbox branded console made by ASUS. Well, it looks like the ROG Ally 2 Xbox edition will be it. So in the leaks, we can see 2 heavily redesigned ROG Ally 2 units, one in white, one in black. Now, they've been redesigned. It seems like the display is slightly bigger and the shape of the controller is completely different. Now, it's no longer sloped and angular. It looks like you have 2 proper controllers attached to, sort of snapped in half and attached to the 2 sides of the ROG Ally, which makes it bigger, makes it bulkier, but also will it make it more comfortable? We'll see. The black one has an Xbox branded button in the top left side. Now, that seems to suggest that the ROG Ally 2 will come out in 2 versions, and one of them will be Xbox branded. Now, what will that mean in terms of software and experience? We don't know, but there's an Xbox button right there. So, putting together all the rumors, wouldn't be a surprise if that's, going to be called that ROG Ally 2 Xbox version or something. Now, on the spec side is also interesting because it looks like the black edition seems to be a higher end model. So not only will it be Xbox branded, but maybe it'll also be more powerful. So we're looking at the Z2 Extreme with the maximum TDP of 36 watts, which is interesting. And potentially we're looking at 64 gigs of RAM, which is a big jump from the ROG, what's it called? The ROG Ally X? Is that the spec bump? Yeah, the Ally X.
Yeah.
The white version, and now things get even more interesting here, is using the AMD Aerith Plus. So this is basically a successor to the Van Gogh architecture of the Steam Deck. Lower TDP, so 20 watts TDP and 16 gigs of RAM. So to me, it looks like ASUS is doing a couple of things. They're teaming up with Microsoft, but they're also going to do an ROG Ally 2 sort of like base model and an ROG Ally 2 Xbox branded powerful high-end model with the Z2 Extreme 64 gigs of RAM. Wouldn't be surprised if that's not too expensive because maybe Microsoft is subsidizing it or something.
Yeah, that's possible. That's possible. And I think the white one may be designed to run SteamOS, right? I mean, because...
That's a good guess, given the system on a chip that it's carrying. The Aerith system on a chip was rumored for a long time, because Valve has been doing like all these Final Fantasy VII references in their code names. So they had Sephiroth, I believe. Now this is Aerith Plus. So it looks. I wouldn't be shocked if. This is a SteamOS handheld.
And speaking of which, here we are. We're sitting here in May, and May was when SteamOS was coming to third party. I mean, we don't have that beta yet. Here we are. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. We've still got a few weeks left in May, but yeah, we're not. That'll be interesting. Now, there is some confusion over the higher end black model's RAM. The memory here, there's an indication that it might be 64, as you said, but I guess later in the documentation or in the images, there is a reference to Micron 32 gigabit. So it could be gigabyte. It could be smaller.
Yeah. And the rumor is also saying that ASUS will show it off at Computex, which begins on May 20th. So And in a couple of weeks, we should know more about the ROG lineup, ROG Ally lineup for 2025, and if really they're doing an Xbox edition or not. So, kind of interesting, fascinating to see that they're splitting the line in base model and a more powerful version.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I think, the year is shaping up to be pretty interesting. We're 4 weeks out or so from the Switch 2. If these things are announced at Computex towards the end of the month, I expect that we won't be seeing the ASUS devices until probably July, August. So that'll take us, to the end of the summer, and it'll be ready in time for the holidays. And on top of that, we're going to have kind of the impact of tariffs throughout the year, just kind of potentially skewing where these things are available, how much they cost, and all sorts of things. So it's going to keep things interesting, I think.
All right. Well, I think that does it for this week's episode.
I think it does,
John.
Federico.
I think we did it.
And you know what? We carried on without Brendon. Not that he's not essential to the show, but I'm just going to pat ourselves on the back for making it through it without his presence.
Yeah,
so.
We did it.
All right.
We miss you, Brendon. Have fun.
We do. We hope you're having a great time. The honeymoon's going well, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. He has dropped by the Discord a couple of times, so it's not like we haven't completely gone silent with Brendon. Yeah. But in any event, that's it for today's show. You can find us all online. Brendon, even though he's not here, can be found over at wavelengths.online. He just posted a story with a recipe earlier today or late yesterday. I don't know. It's a little hard to tell when he's in Japan. But you can read his stuff there and visit his YouTube channel, as well as listen to Into the Aether. And Federico and I, we're over at macstories.net, where we're writing and doing a bunch of podcasts and Club Mac Stories and all sorts of other Apple-related things. And the three of us are also in social media. Just search for our names. We will leave it at that, Federico, and I will talk to you next week.
Ciao, John.